Do you support gay marriage?
No, Barack Obama nor I.
Frankly, the threat is the white men who have had a monopoly on our society, our democracy, and our country.
Been gone for a couple days and crazy continues to ensue. A kids' drag show in Dallas happened over the weekend. You got to hear from that. An MSNBC contributor, correspondent, guest, whatever you want to call her, said the white men are the problem. Again, China has been elected to the executive board of the WHO. Joe Biden said some ridiculous stuff in 2008. We probably won't get to that today. But all that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. On today, it is June 6th, the year of our Lord 2022. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a while since we've actually been live. Pre-taped a couple shows last week. Had a busy travel week. Was on Tim Pool's podcast. If you missed that on Wednesday, you can go check it out anywhere you listen to podcasts, all of that sort of stuff. And then was at an event in Dallas over the weekend, a young women's leadership conference put on by Turning Point USA. So I was in Dallas over the weekend, and on Friday, somebody told me that they were going to this thing, obviously not in attendance to participate, but going to broadcast and show what is going on in some of these super, super woke enclaves of America. I guess maybe being Dallas, maybe Dallas is one of them. I don't know. Maybe downtown Dallas is way more woke than we all would have thought. But the kids' drag show that happened in Dallas on Saturday, interestingly enough, I was in Dallas, knew about it on Friday. I was like, I want no part of this whatsoever. But a couple people that were there reporting on the event that I was at went on Saturday and got some of this crazy footage that we're about to see. How do we get into this? I'm going to issue a big trigger warning here, and maybe that's not the right term because that tends to get, overused and overplayed. But viewer discretion is advised. That's probably the best way to put it with this. This is difficult to watch. Over the weekend on Saturday, there was a drag show in Dallas, which I happened to be in Dallas, in which kids were invited. Now, watching the video is weird and uncomfortable, and it was awkward and very, very cringy. But we're going to play it because I feel like more people need to see that this is actually happening. When you want to talk about gaslighting and all of that sort of stuff that the left has been trying to do to the right for, the last couple years of like, no, that's not actually happening. One of the big things is currently grooming kids to buy into this super, super woke ideology and so on and so forth. A bunch of people on the right side of the aisle say that this is definitely happening. A bunch of people on the left side of the aisle say, no, this isn't happening. Don't even worry about it. What they're saying, they're just trying to scare you. No, it's actually happening. And some of this footage is, again, disturbing and weird, but we're going to play it. We're going to play as much as frankly I can handle, which is not a lot. Watch this video taken by a couple different correspondents, or not, or don't watch it. I don't know, whatever you can muster. This is crazy. Okay, so sorry again, I apologize for putting you through that. That was as comfortable for me to watch the third or fourth time I had to watch it while cutting the show together this morning. It doesn't get any less uncomfortable. But what we saw there, in case you're just listening to the podcast, was a drag show in which kids were in attendance at a bar that is generally 21 and up. A Dallas drag show that promoters called family friendly and appropriate for kids brought both supporters and protesters to it on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, you don't say. Protesters were in full force. Dallas bar Mr. Mister held the event Drag the Kids to Pride drag show Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the city's Oak Lawn neighborhood. The organizers called it a family-friendly spin-off on the Champagne drag brunch that would allow kids to dance with performers on stage. Oh, geez. During the event, drag performers danced and walked down the aisle. In the center of the room, at times, the dancers would take dollar bills from some of the children. Kids also walked with the dancers down the aisle during the event. Protesters also showed up to the event outside, many saying they were upset the kids were involved in the drag show. I honestly don't think that there is a lot of commentary that really needs to be provided here. I think we all see what's going on. I think we can all really, the majority of us, not even the majority on a particular side, but the majority of people in the country as a whole can look at that video and identify exactly why none of that should be happening. Again, if you're just watching, there were kids giving dollar bill tips to drag show performers, I guess. Holy cow. That's really all there's to say about that. I don't think there's anything that I'm going to say that you aren't already thinking. It's disgusting, weird, extraordinarily uncomfortable to watch. A lot of people in the comment section saying child abuse, pure evil. I'm reading some of these comments. Anyone involved needs to go to jail, says Melissa. It's indoctrination. And a lot of comments here saying some bad words that I can't bring on, or else I would. But yeah, it's a wild world out there. Again, I happened to be in Dallas when this was happening. I did not go to it. There was a couple people that I know that were going to film it, and that's where we get some of this footage. That's cringeworthy. Speaking of cringeworthy, I want to get to this. This is an MSNBC guest that basically said white men are the problem. Because they're always the problem. I'm going to play this clip for you, and then we're going to read a little bit about it. I got to find this article again. But this happened on MSNBC, and I think this is a pretty typical guest. I forget her last name, Erin something. On MSNBC, saying some things that most people would not say. One, because it's not true, and two, because most people aren't crazy people. Watch this.
The challenge and then, frankly, the threat is the white men who have had a monopoly on our society, our democracy, and our country, who continue to block our access to the ballot and our liberty as citizens, as women, and everything that comes with it, right? These are the same freedoms that they have always enjoyed and didn't need to earn through amendments. And while it's fine for people to share something when you don't think it's going to cost you anything, when people feel like they are losing something that belongs to them, particularly power, everybody else watch out. I mean, women are the majority of the population today, the majority of the electorate, and yet minority rule is still keeping a playing field uneven across this country. And that is leaving women, the women that I talk to, the voters that I talk to, feeling less free and less fair. Still pushing for equal pay. As you pointed out, still do not have equal representation politically in this country. We're half the population, again, half the democracy, yet there are only 24 of us in the Senate and no black women.
Again. So you heard what she had to say. We've got one more clip to play from that interview. Haynes was asked by the MSNBC host, what would you say is the biggest challenge facing women today? This was on the 103rd anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which allowed women the right to vote, which everybody is in favor of that. Nobody that I know of or even heard of is like, oh yeah, we should repeal the 19th Amendment. There is zero motivation or negative. There is negative desire to remove. I don't know. What we're arguing here is not a real point. What this lady is arguing on MSNBC. Oh, yeah, people are trying to take away women's rights to vote. That's not even remotely true. And then she goes on to the pay gap. She goes on to a laundry list of other things that I didn't feel like putting in there, but she's talking about the pay gap, which was proven time and time again to not be real. I think the Obama administration who put that study, women only make 70 cents on the dollar or 77 cents on the dollar compared to men. I'm pretty sure even the administration said, yeah, those numbers don't account for really any of the variables that you would account for. Let me see if there's anything that she read. I pulled up this article late and I hadn't read through the entire thing. Let me just let her continue on and yeah, whatever it is that she's saying. Check this out.
The suffrage movement, took up so much of the last century. But what we know that the right to vote for women and really just our access as equal participants and citizens in this country is still very fragile and something that women must remain vigilant about.
Yeah, again, I'm not entirely sure how she justifies and squares that. She did not do it on that panel. I watched the whole thing. She just kind of says, yeah, women are struggling to vote. Without giving really any example of how that is possibly true. Haynes also mentioned women's access to abortion, saying they're fighting to keep their reproductive access that gives them the ability to make decisions about their own health and their own bodies, which, of course, any reasonable person can quibble with that statement. And then she went on to reiterate the fact that women still don't have equal representation in this country. Which, again, doesn't quite make sense if you think everybody is equal. I happen to think men and women and everyone has an equal shot to do whatever they want in this country. And the way that the numbers shake out on who gets voted into Congress, who ends up running companies, who ends up doing this, who ends up getting to play in sports leagues, whoever ends up getting to do whatever, is generally, for the overwhelming all of it is based on meritocracy because that's the way the world works. But that is not the way that this MSNBC reporter sees the world, and I'm not entirely sure there's much we can do to help her. Haynes continued saying, there are 9 governors, which is a record, but there's still a record number of women. We have a record number of women in Congress, but it's still only 27%. I don't know. I don't know how that shakes out, but again, I don't think that equity is the way to describe whether or not something is good or not. Equity being the outcome, being equal, not the equality of the start. I want to get to this. This is a bigger story, and it's not as sexy and not as, fun. Not that anything that we talked about today was fun. Jeez. But China was elected to the WHO Executive Board last week. Remember China, the country that started the CCP, Chinese Communist Party bat fever, the definitely not a Wuhan lab leak bat fever that has plagued the entire world for the last 2 years. So those people, they lied about all of that. Those people, China, the country of China, the Communist Party of China, was elected to the WHO Executive Board. So there's that. This is from The Spectator, kind of an editorial piece. I thought this guy said some pretty interesting things. Dang it, I forgot to bring the guy who wrote it. But it's from The Spectator if you want to find this article. He says, let's be honest, is there anyone out there whose faith in the ability of the World Health Organization, who has faith in the ability of the World Health Organization to tackle a future pandemic? Any lingering hope that the WHO might be an organization fit to be trusted with global health concerns has pretty well evaporated with the election by acclamation of China as one of the 12 members of its executive board last Friday. It would hardly be unprecedented for a virus to leak out of the laboratory in this way, even if it would make it a way to make it way and above the world's most expensive laboratory accidents. What has China's response been to the possibility? Try to snuff out any investigation into the matter. Bizarrely, a WHO team allowed into China in the early 2021 and chaperoned at every turn, tried to dismiss a lab leak, announcing it would not investigate the matter any further. So again, if you're new to this, which I can't imagine any of you watching this show are, but just to reiterate and give you a small reminder, China lied to the entire world first at the very beginning, at the onset of this. They knew about this thing in like September, October of 2019, that there was some weird flu thing going around. They didn't say anything. They allowed it to leave the country and spread around the world. Then in January, when people were like, where is this thing coming from? Or what is this thing? What is this coronavirus COVID pandemic that's about to be happening? Where did it come from? People sourced it back to China, and then they tried to make up this thing of, oh, well, it was a bat at a wet bat market in Wuhan, China. Interestingly enough, very, very close, a couple blocks away from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where now pretty much everybody, left, right, center, whatever you think politically, and any reasonable and honest scientist says, yeah, that thing definitely came out of a lab. But of course, China lied about it the entire time. The WHO finally was allowed to go and investigate. They were chaperoned, like this article says, at every single turn, and never came out with any sort of conclusive findings, because China basically destroyed all of the evidence. So that country, those people, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, was elected to the WHO Executive Board. It isn't just China whose presence on so they were elected to the WHO's Executive Board, one of 12 countries. But this article goes on to say it isn't just China whose presence on the WHO Executive Board will cause alarm. Also on the list is Brazil, whose parliament has recommended criminal charges against the country's president over his handling of the pandemic. There's also Yemen, which is in a grip of a civil war. The only European country on the WHO's board is Slovakia, which is hardly the greatest political clout, has the greatest political clout, and which happens to have one of the highest death rates from COVID-19 of anywhere. Here's who's on the list of the WHO Executive Board, the World Health Organization Executive Board. Brazil, Canada, China, Ethiopia, which that guy in that photo with President Xi, dictator Xi, a guy named Tedros, he's from Ethiopia, so that makes sense. Maldives, Micronesia, Morocco, Moldova, Senegal, Slovakia, the USA, and Yemen. So mostly smaller, he puts it right here. In other words, America and Canada apart, it's stuffed with small countries, many with lousy human rights. This word got cut off. Human rights records, or which have no political clout to do so. The prospects of future pandemics do not look good. So there's that. If you had any faith in the WHO, first of all, I would love to hear your reasoning behind that, because I'm not entirely sure why you would, especially all things considering. And two, you can't have any now. Seriously, with all of the information that's come out over China and what's happened throughout the rest of the world, it would be impossible for any reasonable, rational person, without the incentive of Chinese Communist Party money flowing into their pocket, it would be impossible for you to think that China has any business being on the WHO's executive board. So there's that. I'm not entirely sure. I want to talk about what happened over the last weekend. I was in Dallas, Texas at YWLS, which is the Young Women's Leadership Summit that TPUSA puts on. Fantastic time. Huge turnout. That room was packed. Maybe I'll tell some stories from that, I don't know, later on this week when there's not much going on. But fun announcement. I'm not entirely sure. Am I announcing something? I'm not entirely sure I'm announcing something. Tomorrow, teaser. There we go. That's what it's called. It's a teaser. Matt Walsh, the documentarian, the host of Matt Walsh Show on the Daily Wire Network, is going to be joining us tomorrow to talk about his brand new ground earth-shaking documentary, What is a Woman? in which he asks the question, what is a woman? Got to meet Matt on, what day was that? Friday at the Young Women's Leadership Summit, where he was giving a talk on his brand new groundbreaking documentary. So he'll be joining us tomorrow to talk about his documentary and some of the acclaim it has received. So stay tuned for that. Maybe, again, we'll talk about the weekend and kind of what was happening in Dallas, because there's some really interesting stuff going on in the right-leaning movement. Really, really interesting. But that's going to do it for us today. We'll appreciate you tuning in, sticking around, watching each and every weekday morning when we're here on Daily Caller and on all of the other Daily Caller platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Getter, all of that sort of stuff. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts at JOBOB, at The Jobob Show, or I think it's just The Jobob now on Facebook. You can find me. You can send me stuff. Whatever it is that you think is we need to talk about. Yeah, that's the best way you can connect with me. We will see you tomorrow. Anything new happens, if the president talks or does anything, we'll probably be carrying it live or covering it and talking about it. Shoot, we didn't talk about Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. Maybe we'll talk about other stuff right during the week. I know it's kind of old news. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.